Okay, I love the last panel discussion, or not exactly panel, it's a set of people, but I love that discussion because they were like so pragmatic about what they were saying, right? Like, so, and in some way I felt that they are setting up the stage for me. Because if you look at the subject that I have, it's about what comes next, or rather what is beyond the hype. And there's so many concepts which have been spoken about today, right? Like about AI, of course, but also about security, risk, trust, bad actors, fraud prevention. And somewhere I'm going to talk about all these things, hopefully in some sort of a unique manner that it connects with you. So I would straight away go into the slides. Are you sure that it works? Okay, so I'm Puneet and I'm part of Grab. Hopefully you used today morning to reach the venue. I also have some of my team members outside the booth, and GrabDefence, I know it always comes across as a surprise to people. Is it the same Grab? It is the same Grab. We have this B2B technology business that we started a while back, where we actually serve other platforms technology solutions. And I'll not introduce Grab, so I'll take that as a given. But yeah, I mean, like we're around in 8 countries in Southeast Asia, of course, and 700 plus cities. But the lesser known part of Grab also is this technology business, which we call GrabDefence. We serve a bunch of banks and financial institutions on fraud prevention and financial crime management. And I lead that business. But today is not so much about that. Today I just wanted to generally share about what we are seeing in the risk world and where we see AI has helped and where maybe not yet. So, okay, so what has happened in the last 1 year? I would say it's just been fascinating, right? Like in terms of what the ChatGPTs of the world has brought to the table. One way to put it is that if you look at it from some of the dimensions of utility, so these are essentially things which make AI work. So this has really shot up, whether it is the ability to get scale on models, whether it is to get the multi-model cognition, whether it is to have this whole ecosystem where AI is really powering a lot of applications, a lot of tasks, a lot of interactions. And this will, no prizes for guessing, this is just going to continue upwards, right? Now, as a result of that, we have this wave of smarter models which have better data, better decision making, because they have so much of large context. Like they are no longer just operating at one platform level or at one customer segment level. They are operating at a global level of context. So that just changes the game in terms of how fast they can learn and what is the quality of decisions they bring. And then obviously low latency. We all know about how DeepSeek kind of disrupted the game with how cost friendly it turned out to be after all the optimizations. And also just the reasoning capability, like I'm sure all of us already use these programs in so many different ways, not just at work, but also in our daily life. And that kind of gives a hint on where this all is trending towards. At this junction, I don't think the question any longer is AI ready for us? I think the question very much is, are we ready for AI? And now I belong to risk management, and risk management, for those of you who have worked with risk, you will know that this field is a little bit more conservative about things. Let's see how AI has benefited risk management. Definitely a lot of interactive interfaces, a lot of this rule writing which happens for fraud risk, or a lot of investigations which needs to happen for cases. Those have all already started shifting to these interactive, where you just ask a question, you just ask somebody to write a code, the co-pilot to write a code, and things like those. There is definitely an increase in adoption of more advanced methods, because the data is a lot larger, the infrastructure is a lot more capable, and you can do things in a very, very fast and quick manner. So this has been really happening in the last couple of years more faster than ever. And in general, there are productivity boosts. So earlier the process had 5, 6, 7 steps. Now it is, some part of it is just now AI doing it, and yeah, you still need human in the loop. You still need some steps, coming from the process, but slowly, and I don't want to say slowly, pretty quickly, it's getting driven by AI in various ways. The other is that there is a very low barrier for experimentation now. Like if you're a developer, if you're a data scientist, if you're an analyst, and you want to try something new, there are open source models available. So this is one example where my team they wanted to do some OCR on cards, some ID cards. And they just used a one-line command from one of the open source models. And the accuracy they got was somewhere around 92%, which was quite close to all these models that we were developing from these last few years. And this was a year back, I'm sure this 92% is now 98% or 99%. So this is the rate at which things are moving. But, as I said, that when it comes to risk, it's not that straightforward. It's not just about automation. It's not about just moving everything to technology. There are a lot of considerations. And one big, you must have heard explainability, right? Like we did a few times. In risk, you must explain. And to some extent, AI is helping with it, because it can just navigate through a lot of information and give you answers, which obviously helps you to understand. So that explainability is there. Like my team uses this AI agents to say, look, okay, we blocked the customer who suspected fraud. What exactly happened? So the technology will tell you, look, this person was hit by XYZ rules, or this was found to be part of some fraud racket, or whatever that is. But there are also areas where AI is not really that capable. Like you talk about more advanced algorithms. A lot of times the algorithms are focused towards getting the decision right, rather than having the ability to explain it. So it's the classic trade-off between predictability and explainability. And some of that is still not yet there. And it's not necessarily fault of AI. It's also about a lot of other aspects, such as the people using AI, or the processes around it, or whether the supporting systems have been developed in that certain way. So that the technology and the industry still need to solve for. The other is, of course, I'm sure this is the other new word, hallucination. I'm struggling to say that. You can't really have it in risk because the damage is a lot larger. The damage is on trust. It can even introduce liabilities. Here are some examples. Like if you get it wrong in, let's say, a chatbot giving wrong information somewhere in the customer interaction, sure, not good, but not devastating. But the processor getting approved for loan because the AI was not able to detect it correctly, that's pretty big, right? Similarly, you have a recommendation system, somebody gets a recommendation of watching a movie, the person doesn't like it, sure, you can improve it, but no big deal. But a money laundering case getting undetected, definitely very damaging to the platform. Some other examples are here. I think the bottom line is that when it comes to risk, there have to be additional steps in between, or at least there needs to be a very solid way of understanding and making sure that the due diligence on the decision making is there. And then, of course, how can we forget this? These advancements have not only happened to us, it has also happened to the other side of the world, other side of the party, other side of the competition. The arms race. As you would be aware, so many scams which are now hyper-personalized. Dark GPTs, if you're in the business of fraud, you don't need a lot of know-how. You just need access. You just need access to systems, and you need to ask. You need to tell them, look, I'm trying to do XYZ on this particular platform, and I need some script to kind of bypass it. And then you'll get the answers. You have lots and lots of new software which is coming in the market, which is like plug and play. If you're running a fraud operations team, not in a bank, but essentially let's say a fraud syndicate. And again, hardware, device farms, easy to get bots, easy to just run things at scale. And the scale really is scaling. Because the scale means that they can just continue to try. They can just afford to put a lot of agents, machines, software to keep targeting systems until they find something. And they just need to find it, sooner or later, something small, something big. For them, it doesn't matter so much to play that waiting game, but for the systems, it's a real test. So what used to take criminal networks weeks, now take minutes. It's written by AI, distributed on telegrams of the world, and executed by scripts. So this is, the challenge from the other side, because AI is not just available to us in the room, as I said earlier. And this broad frontier is getting more complex. We already knew very little about it, to be honest. Like we just know what we see in our systems. We don't know how they are operating. We don't even know who those people are. They rarely get caught. They rarely get visible. It's a dark net. It's an economy we don't understand. And it is getting more and more like that, because it's just getting more. There are more variables at play. There are like the macroeconomics, the geopolitics, the technology. The data leak happens in one country. The script comes from another country. The modus operandi gets executed in some other country. The money gets laundered to another country. It's just something we don't have enough visibility on. So then, what does it mean? What does it mean as a next frontier for AI and for risk management? Of course, it's a very broad topic. We talk about so many things in the world. I'll just talk about a couple of them. One, that the new risk stack now has an additional element to it, which is, if they call it so far where we were, I would say before 2024, where we were, we mostly had some local intelligence. So if I am part of, let's say, Grab, so Grab would have its own data, would have its own labels, and it would say, look, okay, I understand some fraud, let me build some models on it. So that's like the local intelligence at a Grab level. And then we had some human intelligence. Of course, this is the people. These are the people who have been in the industry, who understand how things can go wrong. So that intelligence somewhere comes in form of either rules or processes or investigations. Now there is another element which is like a global intelligence, because there are these LLMs who are trained on, whatever data in the world. We have these Gen AI models, which the example I showed earlier about the OCR. And what really is required is not for them to work in isolation, but essentially how they are going to work together. So this is a new dimension now, that your risk protections need to operate now with this new open source algorithms as well. And I know that one of the participants earlier today, one of the speakers earlier today spoke at length about this. The other is that this was always the case, that the risk management is better when it is dynamic, when there is dynamic learning, and this is now going to become even more important because there are more layers and there are more complexities. And when you have that, you need your systems to be learning from multiple sources of feedbacks, which could be of course your labels, but also your regulators, your analysts, your investigations, your market research, your fraud research. And a lot of this process of, it's a very simple circle, right? Like model adjustment, model decision, whatever. But it now is getting, it will get more advancements with humans and AI working together. Because you could have your data scientists, but they're also working along with these new AI tools. And how do you kind of maximize that setup is going to be crucial when it comes to scaling up technology from here on. Connected features, contextual decisions, thinking across the user journey, not just at one point. If I'm a digital platform, at the time of login, at the time of transaction, at the time of loan, whatever is the touch point of the user, it's essentially about understanding the full journey and mapping risk across it. I'm moving very fast because I'm just conscious of time. I'll very quickly scan through this, that, again, because I remember this was a very elaborate discussion earlier today. Models need to be transparent, they need to be auditable, they need to be, they need to have built-in compliance. All of those concepts, boring ones, but they are more crucial than ever when it comes to the future. Now, I've spoken about a lot of things pretty quickly because, as you can imagine, that AI is such an intensive topic these days that it's hard to really say something in brief, right? But I wanted to conclude with a very profound thought that, how do teams who are in this space of risk, at least, I mean, I can say that it's probably true for any other function as well, but I would just want to talk about this today. So they don't see this as a challenge. I mean, of course, they see it as a challenge also in a way, but it is also an opportunity. So great risk teams, they don't fear risk, they engineer it. And what it means is to look at it from a very product management perspective. Eventually solving risks have become a technology problem more than anything else. So all the good principles of technology building, thinking foundational. We spoke a lot about foundational work in the last discussion, right? Like get the basics right, get everything sorted first before you scale up. Think from an end-to-end user experience perspective. Think about how you will build those iterations. Think about how it will look like 2, 3 years, 4 years down the line, because AI is not going anywhere. It's there to stay. I think, as I mentioned earlier, that the onus is on the teams to kind of understand it and use it to their advantage rather than just letting it be in this hype mode. With that, I want to say that I really appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I hope that it was of some value. Thank you so much.